Hello, welcome back to another adventure, and today we're off to Geneva. This was actually quite a spontaneous trip because I literally got the tickets for £40. I basically just came across them when checking Skyscanner. So I would recommend, if you want to experience Geneva on a budget, to come around the end of March because tickets are quite cheap during that time. Right as you exit the terminal, there are tons of buses taking you around all over Geneva or the borders of France, and that costs around €8, so about £6-7 for the full day. Another thing that I did to experience Geneva on a budget was I booked a hostel on the outskirts of Geneva, so it was in a town called fairytale, which is basically the border between France and Switzerland, and this was the cheapest I could find. It basically cost me £83 for the 2 nights, and to be honest, for the price it was a pretty decent hotel with plenty of bus connections to get into Geneva city centre, which took about 50 minutes. Also, the hotel was actually opposite a ton of food places and a large supermarket, so it was very convenient. As soon as I spotted this bakery, I just knew I had to rush in, and I got myself an eclair and 2 madeleines, which cost me around £10. By this time it was around midday, so I just made my way to Geneva city centre. My first stop was the United Nations building, which is in a little bit of the outskirts of Geneva city centre, so I just visited that first. I had a tour of Lake Geneva booked for about 4 o'clock, so I just came by the pickup point and walked around for a bit whilst I waited. I got myself this crepe, which was filled with Swiss dark chocolate and some sort of caramel, and that is Jet de Genève. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But to be fair, the crepe cost me about £9, and it was too sweet for me to even finish, and I ended up having to throw the rest away. Anyway, I just enjoyed the views whilst I was waiting for my tour. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the tour basically cost me about £17, and it was for an hour, and it would do a full circle around Lake Geneva. Also, that's me getting shocked by how clear the waters are. And that's a closer look at Jet de Genève. Again, sorry for the pronunciation. Guys, the thing that I was most excited for, the flower clock, was closed for renovations. I was so devastated. To be honest, guys, there's not much to do in Geneva, so for the rest of the evening I just walked around. Went into this chocolate shop. Of course, you're in Switzerland, you're gonna get chocolate, but they were so expensive. 4 costing me about £6, and they were too sweet. And to save my bank, I went to McDonald's for dinner. On the second day of this trip, I took a bus from Geneva Airport to Annecy bus station, which is a little town within France, and that cost me around £10 only because I pre-booked it. I'm pretty sure it's much more if you go there and buy it, so highly recommend pre-booking. When I saw this pastry shop, you guys, I just could not help but get a black forest cake, which cost me around £6. But the black forest cakes within Switzerland, or the borders of Switzerland, they just hit differently. They're so different than the ones that we get back in the UK, and they're so good. So highly, highly recommend that. So Annecy is basically known as the Venice of French Alps, and of course you can see why. It's just filled with these canals all around the city centre. And the whole town is just surrounded by these mountains, which is surreal. Time for lunch, which was at this Columbus cafe. I got myself a veg sandwich and blue looking lemonade, and that cost me around £11. I then made my way to this museum, which was a medieval castle now turned museum. I didn't actually go inside the museum just because I didn't have the tickets, and for me the tickets were a little bit too expensive, so I just skipped that. But as you can see, here are the ticket prices if you do wish to check it out. Again, there wasn't much to do and my bus wasn't till 7 p.m, so I just sat around the garden near Lake Annecy and enjoyed the views. At which point I started getting hungry, so I walked about 15 minutes to this little Vietnamese restaurant. It was small and I'm guessing family owned. I just ordered a fried rice and some Vietnamese spring rolls with some coconut water, and it was basically cheap and decent food, not too bad. But the highlight was the sago dessert. It was so delicious and it was just perfectly sweetened. After that meal, I basically just headed back to Geneva for the night. Forgot to record everything because I reached about 11 o'clock at night and passed out, and I had my flight the next morning for 7 a.m. I just grabbed a quick breakfast before my flight, which was more expensive than it should have been. It was just a basic coffee and croissant, which wasn't even that good, but I was starving at this point and I needed to eat something. And with that, I bid Geneva a goodbye, and it was wonderful being there. Thank you all for watching, and I hope I see you guys in the next video. Bye!